Good afternoon, guys. I'm Mackenzie, and today we're going to be talking about the book of Judith in the Apocrypha. We're going to talk about its message, relevance, and connection to the Hebrew Bible. So to start, the message of Judith I split into two parts, chapters 1 through 7 and chapters 8 through 16. In part 1, chapters 1 through 7, it gives us context of what's going on at the time. The first chapter begins with the 12th year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, who ruled over the Assyrians in the great city of Nineveh. Here he is. At the time, he was at war with King Oxford, and Nebuchadnezzar asked nations around him to help him defeat King Oxford, but they all say no. But eventually, King Nebuchadnezzar defeats King Oxford and vows to destroy all the nations that refused to help him at the time. So he brings in Holofernes, his commander-in-chief, to lead the Assyrian armies to carry out his task. And they do by destroying all the nations that they come across. Eventually, Holofernes wants to seize Jerusalem, but the small town of Bethulia is in their way. So instead of destroying the city as, a current habit of theirs, he decides to cut off their water supply. Fast forward 34 days, the people in Bethulia beg the town elders to surrender to Holofernes and his army, even though that meant that they could not worship God anymore and instead had to worship King Nebuchadnezzar. But the king magistrate, Uzziah, convinces the people to wait 5 more days for God to save them, and if he does not, then they will surrender. This leads us into part 2, chapters 8 through 16, and in chapter 8, Judith is finally introduced as a beautiful widow living in Bethulia at the time. Here she is. When she hears of the town's decision, she is angered by the people and that they put a time limit on God's work. So she takes matters into her own hands and makes a plan, but refuses to tell anyone until that plan is completed. So that night, her and a loyal maid leave town and go into Holofernes' camp. She convinces the Assyrians that she is ready to betray her people and help them instead. So Judith and her maid spend the next 4 days with the Assyrians. On the 4th day, Judith attends a banquet hosted by Holofernes. At the banquet, he gets very drunk, and it is described that more than since he was born, he was very drunk. So he passes out, and eventually Holofernes and Judith are alone. And because Holofernes is passed out, Judith takes that opportunity to grab the sword above his bed and with 2 strikes cuts off his head. And after that, Judith collects his head, and her maid go back to Bethulia and show the people Holofernes' head. Everyone celebrates and worships God for this amazing event that took place. Back at the Assyrian camp, though, Holofernes' headless body is discovered, and the entire camp goes into a panic. The entire army scatters, and when the Israelite army comes in, any Assyrian who's left is killed. So this eventually leads Judith to be honored, and all the people in the country celebrate the great deed that she did. So Judith eventually decides to stay in Bethulia and remain a widow until she dies at 105. But during that entire time, after her deed, she is considerably honored and desired by many. Even at the end of the book, it describes that no one again spread terror among the Israelites during her lifetime or a long time after her death. The relevance of the book of Judith is that it is an apocryphal work that is excluded from the Hebrew and Protestant biblical canons, but is included in the Septuagint and accepted in the Roman canon. The book of Judith is widely considered fiction because of its historical and chronological errors, and attributed to an anonymous Palestinian who wrote Judith after the end of the Maccabean revolt. However, despite its controversial accuracy, it portrays the themes that faith must stay strong in times of stress and that God provides protection to his people. The story of Judith can also be tied to Hanukkah and the tradition to eat cheese as a way to remember Judith and her giving cheese to Holofernes to make him more drunk. So I hope my little spiel helped you guys have a better understanding of the book of Judith. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.